The NFL season is halfway through, and a mock draft is most certainly due. Mel Kiper and Field Yates have the top 10 picks in our first mid-season mini mock. That's coming up. Plus, as always, we respond to your questions, your takes, and your draft dreams live as First Draft starts right now. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the First Draft Podcast. I am Greeny alongside the legendary Mel Kiper and Field Yates as we are in the midst of one of the most interesting little times on the sports calendar. If you sort of sit back and think about all the things that have happened, the World Series has just concluded. It was unbelievable. We got the NFL trade deadline in our midst, and we are at the midway point of the NFL season, which is why we are using this opportunity to do our first mid-season mock. But maybe the most important thing that has just passed was Halloween, most people's favorite holiday. A day in which children all across this country dress as Mel Kiper Jr. and knock on the doors and ring the doorbells of random homes in search of candy. And so the first question is, Mel, how many people came and trick-or-treated at your house? And secondly, were any of them dressed as Mel Kiper?
Yeah, they had the big mock draft jacket on, with all the order of the draft and everything going on. But I'll give you an over-under for how many trick-or-treaters came to our house. And guess what? Lights are on. Not the Christmas lights yet. We're going to wait a couple weeks for Christmas, and the tree goes up, obviously, for me next week. My Christmas tree goes up next week. I'm one of the earliest in America getting a tree up. But I was ready. I had my Milky Ways, my Snickers bars ready. Kim and I were ready to roll, right? Over under for how many trick-or-treaters came to our house is 5. Over under 5. Where would you go?
I got a question on a technicality here. Mm-hmm. So the big house. If somebody goes to one door and gets some candy and then goes back to another door of the house, a lot of space to work with there, do we double count them, or is that still just one trick-or-treater?
No, we don't even care how you count them, Fielding. You don't even have to worry about that. I'll give you the answer. Would you guys go over or under that?
I would have gone over.
I've got another question. I have to ask another question. Are you counting the number of times the doorbell rang? Meaning, if there's a group of 7 kids together, does that count as one?
Question.
Or
I'll give you doorbell ringing, kids in the area. We'll count them if they were just in the area. Like we talk about pressures at some schools, they give away like Halloween candy. I'll give you a pressure as a ring or as a count. I'll count that if the trick-or-treater was actually walking close to the house. I'll give you that one.
So it has to be under based on the way you're setting up the story.
Yeah.
I'm just tricking you a little bit. This trick or treats. I'm kind of tricking you.
I'm going under as well.
You. I'm asking you, where would you bet? Over 5 or under? Based on everything I've said, would you go over 5 or under 5?
Under
for sure.
Yeah.
You were right. Now we had, but the better question is, how many you think came?
I'm gonna go. I'm going to go with 0. There were trick-or-treaters were nowhere to be seen on Friday night.
Obviously, they were scared of me. They're scared of me.
No.
People said that before because there's people. I remember Andy Poland, my good friend, said to me, I said, Andy, I saw you at different parties or around town. Yeah. I'm scared to talk to you. I don't know. I had this persona. I don't know what it was, but there were people back in the day. I guess people were afraid. We did not have anybody ring the doorbell.
Wow.
I didn't see anybody walking in the area. Nothing. So now all of a sudden, based
what
on
happened.
You know what happened to those Milky Ways and Snicker bars?
Yeah, they're in your belly. Yeah.
They're almost gone. Almost all gone. So there you go. I gained 5 pounds because we didn't have any trick-or-treaters. Okay,
you know what? I figured this out, though. I cracked the code. What happened was the entire area, the entire neighborhood went as the Bengals defense. They're nowhere to be seen.
That was scary. That was scary watching. I watched that on Friday night. And we got a mock draft today that hopefully allows these teams like the Bengals maybe get a little bit better. But I've seen Pop Warner and defenses tackle better than that. So we'll get to those stories in a minute. But yeah, it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun to see where we go. Fielding and Greeny with this mock draft, because there are some players this year that are very difficult to evaluate. These teams have multiple needs, and we have a rule. And I guess we'll throw it out there, Greeny. Hey, you're the moderator. What's the rule?
No trades. Right. Field was lobbying for trades. Let's go behind. Let's take people behind the curtain. Field was lobbying for trades, and Mel, as the elder statesman, you absolutely shut it down.
Shut it down.
Yes.
Yeah. Which, and honestly, he did give me the first pick. So he gave me that. Like, he threw me that bone there because I was looking to wheel and deal. I want to be the Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager of first draft. That's all I aspire to be in this life. Mel, shut that one down, though.
Howie Roseman is going to have a wing in the Hall of Fame when all this stuff. You're going to go visit the Howie Roseman wing where they install other general managers. Okay, let's get down to business here. A reminder of who we are and what we do. If you see the QR code on your screen there, you can access all the conversations that we've had leading up to this. Last week, we were talking about the toughest rebuild jobs that exist out there for all the different teams. And we've had these conversations once a week, every week. So today we are going to do our first mini mock. We will mock the first 10 draft picks. And so I get to do my favorite thing. I get to play the role of the commissioner, Roger Goodell. I walk out to resounding boos. Everyone is booing. And once the booing finally dies down, I say, ladies and gentlemen, the 2026 first draft mini mock 1.0 is officially open. So it is my pleasure to declare the mock draft officially open. The pick is in. The New Orleans Saints are on the clock. And as a quick note, we are going to do the order, the top 10 picks in the order in which the draft would go if it were being conducted. At the moment we are having this conversation, that will of course change 100 different times. But I've always said the players, when you get to these mini mocks and even mock drafts, it's the players more than the teams that are most interested. Get a sense of where the head of Mel and Field are on the top players. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. The Saints are on the clock. I have a couple of good little posts here. Daryl Samuels tweets, what if the Saints trade for a veteran quarterback like a Kyler Murray or Tua and then built through the draft and blue chip players like Reese or Downs? I have another one from Clay who says Saints need to trade back if they end up with the number one pick. Neither Rattler nor Shuck is the issue with the offense or the team. Trade back, get some extra picks. So the people have spoken, but only one man gets to make the decision. The first pick is in, and with the first pick in the 2026 first draft, mid-season, mini mock, Field, who do the New Orleans Saints select?
Granny, not going to spend too much time deliberating. You know, the NFL always makes that team with the first pick buy a little bit of time. Good for television efforts. We of course, are big beneficiaries in that regard. That being said, I am going to submit the card because I have some conviction on this pick being a quarterback. My top graded quarterback so far, this juncture of the college football season remains Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from the University of Indiana. We have talked at length about the skill set that he brings to the table. Superior accuracy, excellent arm strength, has some mobility as well. Did a good job last year making the most out of not a lot at that Cal offense. This year, he has played behind better structure. He has played for a better offensive coaching staff, and he has helped Indiana to the number 2 ranking in the Associated Press poll. If the season ended today, they would be in a first-round bye in the college football playoff. He has shown toughness. He has shown big plays in big games. Indiana has been tested a couple of times, hasn't always been perfect, wasn't perfect this past weekend for Mendoza. That being said, a quarterback race that I think was 3 players that I'd thought about this number 1 overall pick in the draft, Fernando Mendoza emerges. I understand the Saints just took Tyler Shuck 40th overall in the draft this past year. But I think the way or the moments in which I felt quarterback was definitely back on the table for the Saints in 2026 was when they did not take a quarterback number 9 overall last season. If it took a quarterback number 9, they would probably be angling to develop that quarterback further and further and further. And I know that the 40th overall pick is not one that you just want to waste. And I know that Tyler Shuck has started just 1 game so far. But the investment financially you make at the 40th overall pick is so modest, so moderate, that if all Tyler Shuck is your backup quarterback to an eventual first-round pick at QB, to me, if you're the Saints, you don't plan to be in this spot again in the near future, you take the quarterback at number 1 overall.
Yeah, mock 1.0 last year, guys. I had the New Orleans Saints taking Jackson Dart at pick number 9. So if they would have taken Jackson Dart, what would we be saying right now? Now, we don't know what Jackson Dart would have been doing with that supporting cast. We don't know that. That's an unknown. We know what he's doing with the Giants. So history would have been rewritten. things would have been a lot different with the Giants. Certainly would have been different for the Saints. How they would attack this draft would have been maybe completely different. But we go to pick number 2, Greeny.
Can I ask one thing, Mel? Would you have taken a quarterback at number 1 for sure?
Well, it's where you get different perspectives. Louis Riddick, love Tyler Shock.
What would you have done
right now if he were here?
I don't know.
I'm a Shedeur Sanders guy. What am I going to be saying about Cleveland? But you got to kind of remove yourself from your opinion and your feeling and say, what does the organization feel? So for Tyler Shock, it's a big unknown. And do they have a huge grade on Fernando Mendoza? They had a grade on Shock. They have a grade on Mendoza. If it's significantly different, you take the quarterback Fernando Mendoza. So let's go Mendoza at 1. The second team, though, Greeny, the Tennessee Titans.
Wait, the card is in. We have to do our shtick. Wait a minute. Okay. Joe went and got the chime and everything. We have to let him play his voice. The pick is in. Listen to the enthusiasm and the excitement of the crowd. All right. With the second pick in the 2026 first draft, mid-season mini mock, Mel, the Tennessee Titans select?
I'm going to say this. The name is easy. The player is easy. The trade is going to be thwarted by a rule.
Right.
This is where, if you're Tennessee, you're hoping the Jets at 3 or Cleveland at 6 or the Vegas Raiders, that somebody wants to jump up, and preferably the Jets say, hey, we want this quarterback. Mendoza goes, we want either Dante Moore or Ty Simpson. We're desperate enough to get one of those two because we don't love the other guy, but we love one of those two enough to say we'll go from 3 to 2. And get that quarterback. So if we can't project trade, we can still do it this way. It doesn't even matter because Field can say, hey, I'd have gone to 2 to get this guy. And I'd say I'd have dropped to 3 if I'm Tennessee. Either way, Tennessee's getting one player. He's number 4 on my board right now because I have a couple quarterbacks ahead and I got the running back as well. But the best defensive player in this draft, he can wear a lot of hats. He can be edge. He can be off ball. He is a 6'4", 245-pounder from the number 1 team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. He has 4.5 sacks over the last 4 games. Sacks in 6 of their 8 games. Had a phenomenal game against Penn State. His name is Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State, goes to the Tennessee Titans either at 2 or 3, depending upon trade possibilities or whatever. But at pick number 2, because we're not doing trades, Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State, to the Tennessee Titans.
I have only 2 thoughts here because I would have done the exact same thing if I were Mel with the number 2 pick. I would like, and I'm trying not to be so single-minded when it comes to player and evaluations and what they should be at the next level. But I really think Arvell Reese, if he became a full-time pass rusher in the NFL, could be the kind of guy that changes your defense relatively quickly into his NFL career. I've been saying that, the NFL has felt like throughout this process, there really hasn't been that edge rusher who is in that category of Abdul Carter or a Bosa brother or some of those recent top 2 or 3 overall picks. Maybe Arvell Reese is not quite there, but the past month has certainly helped the cause. He has been the best defensive player in all of college football this season.
Okay, so we are 2 picks in. Crowd's getting excited and restless. I love, by the way, that Mel makes a rule that we can't have a trade, and then goes into great detail of all the trades he would like to have made in this.
What do you want, Mel?
Hey,
that's okay.
I know. I've always been a rule breaker, Greeny. You know that, pal.
I love it. Okay, so we've got Fernando Mendoza going number 1 to the Saints. We have Arvell Reese going number 2 to the Tennessee Titans. The third pick is the New York Jets. And we have a tweet here from our colleague, Rich Cimini, who has been covering the Jets for decades, which suggests there's no human being alive who has seen more terrible football in their lifetime than Rich Cimini, with the possible exception of me. He tweets, Jets at Saints, December 21st, will have major draft ramifications. Woo! Yes, it certainly will. As we speak right now, the Jets would line up to pick 3rd. And so, with the 3rd pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock, Field, the New York Jets select.
I got to ask you a question here, Greeny.
Yeah.
Who is the greatest quarterback the Jets have ever selected?
That would be Joe Willie Namath.
Joe Willie Namath, who played his college ball where?
At Alabama.
And it's time to go down to the Tuscaloosa pipeline one more as the Jets are taking Ty Simpson, quarterback from Alabama. Now, last week on the show, I expressed that there are some people that are not convinced he is even going to declare for this upcoming draft. But with every week that has passed by this season, the door has cracked open a little bit further. And he has the attention of evaluators all over the NFL. He has been remarkable for Alabama this season. if you just take the Florida State game and flush it down the toilet, he's been as clean as you could possibly expect. His accuracy has been on point. When he has a chance to set his body and step into throws, he absolutely rips it. He has been extremely patient, waiting for his opportunity at Alabama. Mel always reminds us he's the son of a coach. There are some intangibles that teams are enamored by here with Ty Simpson. Again, he could totally return to Alabama for one more year in this scenario. He does not, and the Jets get, and I'm knocking on wood right now, because it hasn't always worked out this way with recent quarterback investments. We hope they're quarterback of the future.
So, Mel, I have a question for you. First of all, let me just make a statement, and I've said this many times. I have two different approaches to the kinds of shows that I host. So on shows like Get Up or when I did Mike and Mike, I assume people are there because they want to hear my opinion on things. So I will talk endlessly about the Jets. When I'm hosting the draft, Mel, with you and Lewis and Booger and everybody, no one, literally no one, is tuning into that show because I'm hosting it. So my job, they're tuning in because they want to see the picks and they want to hear you guys' analysis. And my job is to point guard and traffic cop our way through it. So I don't talk about the Jets any differently than I talk about any other team on the draft. I will confess, if the Jets take a quarterback at number 3, that's going to be put to the test. You're going to see me gluing myself to my chair. I'm going to have to be very calm and very poised and very collected. But I do want to ask you, is that the right order? In a draft in which Fernando, in a world right now, Mel, I'm not going to hold you to this because there's still almost half a season to go. But in a world in which Fernando, Mendoza, Ty Simpson, and Dante Moore are all in the draft, did the Mendoza and Simpson going 1 and 2, is that the right order in your opinion?
For me, no, it's not the right order right now. So. It may well be, and it may work out this way. I think you look at this week's game against the Iowa Hawkeyes, and that defense that gave Mendoza
That's a good test.
Trouble.
Yeah,
it's a great test, Field.
Yep.
It's a great test. This Iowa team, Kirk Ferentz's teams always get better as the year goes along. Yep. Parker is a great defensive coordinator, okay, and he always schemes it up, and he makes it difficult for quarterbacks. Mendoza had a rough game, made some really clutch throws in that game. He did, but he had a rough stat line and some throws that say, is he really the number 1 pick? How does Dante Moore navigate that game and that defense? After you go back to the Penn State game and then the Indiana game, neither Mendoza or Moore were scintillating in that game when Indiana beat Oregon. So for Dante, got the bloody nose in the last game and the rain, kind of malaise. They're a big favorite of Wisconsin. They eased to a victory, kind of sleepwalking through that game. So I think now you have both had a week off. Now you want to see Dante Moore kind of get back to what we saw against Penn State. Get back to that where he was in rhythm and he looked like the man, right? So Dante Moore, to answer your question, Greeny, is still my number 1 quarterback. Mendoza 2, Ty Simpson 3. And the big thing here is, and we got to say it, we say it every week, but just to remind everybody, because you never know if we have first-time viewers and listeners, is Mendoza, we know will be in the draft. We don't know whether Dante Moore and Ty Simpson, one of the two or both, will even be in this draft. Yes. I think they should both go back. Ty Simpson's only been a 1-year start. That's not enough. Dante Moore had 5 at UCLA, and then this year, that's not enough. They need to go back based on that criteria. So for me, and it speaks volumes as to those starts, success or failure. You don't start enough games, you failed more than you've been successful. So for me, that's going to impact this whole thing too about how teams view Mendoza. Because then all of a sudden, if you're picking 1, and you're the Saints, you say, hey, we got to take the guy because everybody else wants him. But then what did the Jets do, right? What did the Jets do at quarterback? If it's only Mendoza and you can't get him because the Saints are picking 1, to what Rich Samini, who's the one of the best in the business, said, that game, who picks number 1, right? Who picks number 1, whether it's the Saints, the Jets, because you may only have that 1 quarterback standing, which would be Fernando Mendoza if those 2 decide to go back. So that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. I'm still waiting to see what Dante Moore does, particularly, like I say, this week against Iowa before I finalize. And we're not going to finalize our ratings for a long time from now. But that's the 3-horse race, as Field said. That's the 3-horse race. If they're all in the draft, that's the guys. And, of course, Lenore Stellers of South Carolina, talented but raw and doesn't have much around them there. So, but I think that's what we see right now, the way the quarterback situation will shake down.
That's what I thought, and that's why I thought it was worth getting in there. That these opinions are as fluid as they are, and it's a long time before anyone is right or wrong. But so recapping, we have Fernando Mendoza going number 1 to the Saints. We have Arvell Reese going number 2 to the Titans. We have Ty Simpson going number 3 to the New York Jets. And so now the pick is in with the 4th pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock. Mel, the Miami Dolphins select.
And I go to my blue, but this is my notebook, right? And this is what I keep everything in. Everything's in there.
I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, you can't. All this stuff.
It's like chicken scratch
every week. And Miami's tricky because
they are
for obvious reasons. New GM's coming in, right?
Yep.
Tua, what's his future there? Head coach McDaniel, shaky there. We'd have a whole new situation coming in terms of head coach GM. Then all of a sudden, what do they do? I mean, what do they do at the quarterback spot? How does that GM and that head coach feel about Tua? You have a problematic situation with wide receiver. You could use a receiver there. You have a big problem on defense. Yeah. Last right now, an opponent passer rating is the Miami Dolphin defense. Last in opponent fifth worst per carry average allowed.
Terrible.
Defensively, problematic, right?
Very.
But do you stretch it a little bit? I go to my big board. I have Caleb Downs at 8. Now, if you're the Bengals, based on their atrocious defense, right? You'd love to see Caleb Downs there, right? Is it a little too high for a safety when Kyle Hamilton didn't even go in the top 10? Now, I'll have a higher grade on Kyle than I do Caleb Downs. So that's where you get into Miami. Do you take the higher rated receiver, or do you take just the best defensive player, which in this case would be, based on rating, Caleb Downs in a positional need area, which is the safety spot. So this is a dilemma of all dilemmas for Miami, and a tricky spot for me to say, okay, how am I going to make this mock look right and figure out what Miami will do, knowing everything's going to be changing, right? So I'm going to do, for the sake of this, knowing this defense is so bad, knowing what we know, I'm going to go Caleb Downs here, the safety from Ohio State, which kind of screws up, I think, Cincinnati at 9 for fielding, because that would have been a great spot. If we wanted to get to go by grade, you'd put maybe a Carnell Tate, who's, by the way, is fast emerging as maybe wide receiver 1. This Ohio State history at wide receiver. Did you see the game this past week? And you seen all the big catches he's made down the field? Great character, great everything. Ohio State's receivers, that's wide receiver U.
He's my guy, Mel.
Slightly ahead of LSU as wide receiver U. So this is where you could put Carnell Tate to Miami. You could go Caleb Downs based on the defensive issues. And I don't know what they're going to feel about Tua. Dante Moore could be the possibility here, could be the pick here. I'll just go because that defense is so bad and Caleb Downs is a solid player. I'll affect the Bengals, and I'll take Caleb Downs at 4.
Okay. The name that I didn't hear, that I was surprised not to hear at all mentioned, was Peter Woods, defensive tackle from Clemson, who the classic, you have to look past the box score. The stats are not going to wow you whatsoever. My 2 cents on Miami is this. It depends on what you do at head coach first. I'm not trying to fence it there, but if the team
and also
moves
the Kenneth
on,
Grant factor. They took Kenneth Grant last year.
Yeah, and they still need a lot of help on that defensive tackle spot. It ain't
that's
good
why,
enough anywhere close to it.
That's why I went away from Woods, because of Kenneth Grant, not going defensive tackle back-to-back years. So, like I said, I was down to either Carnell Tate or Caleb Downs. I'll go Caleb Downs here. But you're right. Peter Woods, very active and very disruptive this past week in that loss.
That crazy game against Duke.
So, number 11 is a very talented. He's on offense. He's getting the ball there in the backfield. He's a heck of an athlete and a heck of a talent. Like you said, and you said it perfectly, Field. Look beyond the stat sheet at Peter Woods. And they moved him around there. They had an outside last year a lot. So Peter Woods would be in strong consideration here, but the Kenneth Grant factor is the reason why I went away from him.
Okay, so I really believe if Miami makes a coaching change, it also buys that new coach a ton of time, right? Like, no team is going to hire a head coach and say, it's this year or you're gone after this year, and quarterback comes into play. They have very little recourse to just get themselves out of the Tua Tagovailoa contract after this year cleanly. It's going to be some level of medicine they have to take. It's going to be, and I'm talking tens of millions of dollars of dead salary cap space eventually taken up when they move off of Tua Tagovailoa. But the team may say, hey, let's get through one more year, wipe the slate clean, and worry about 2027 and beyond. But I'm okay with the pick you made of Caleb Downs. He has not been quite as dynamic this year as he was a season ago, when he really did look like the best defensive player on that Ohio State national championship team. That being said, the skill set is exceptional, and the Dolphins need anybody in the defensive backfield. And now it's time for my pick, Greeny.
Okay, so that brings us to the 5th pick in this draft. And here's another team with some uncertainty of who's going to be in charge. The New York Football Giants We'll see. They've had some very good moments this year building around
quarterback, yep.
The young quarterback, Jackson Dart, and the young running back, Cam Scadaboo, who's hurt, and the young dynamic wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, who's hurt. Yep. And so it becomes very difficult to evaluate, I think. So I'll be fascinated to see who it is that is in charge of the Giants when this pick is actually made. But for now, it is the 5th pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock. Field Yates, the New York Giants select
wide receiver Carnell Tate from Ohio State. And Mel and I, I'm sure, will eventually plant our flags on guys that are our guys. I'm teasing America. I'm giving a tease to America right now. Carnell Tate's going to be on the very short list, and every single week. And I understand that he is the second best receiver on his own team. Jeremiah Smith is an alien. Carnell Tate is something that's slightly lower or lesser than an alien. He is exceptional. He looks so pro-ready to me. His route running, his strength, his hands, the contested catch ability, all of it is so good. This Brian Hartline U pipeline is just unbelievable. I don't know how he gets these guys to basically be ready to be contributors from day one, but he does that at a very high level. Carnell Tate, the next man up here. Now, imagine the Giants offense from a year from right now, in which they have a healthy Malik Neighbors and Cam Scadaboo to go along with Jackson Dart. They have 2 offensive tackles who've been playing their butts off when healthy this season. Andrew Thomas on the left side, Jermaine Illuminor on the right side. If Illuminor is extended this offseason, the offensive line is in good shape, but they need more. They simply need more. We have seen it in recent weeks without Malik Neighbors, without Cam Scadaboo. I thought about Peter Woods because there's a chance his grade is slightly higher than Carnell Tate. And when you're picking in the top 5, you do have to be thinking about value, not just need, but it's not that far off. I absolutely love everything that Carnell Tate brings to the table. The Giants offense would be a whole lot more exciting in a division, by the way, in which the Cowboys don't play any defense. You got to find a way to keep up with them, though. On offense, the Eagles can move the football, and the Commanders, when Jaden Daniels is healthy, can be an effective offense as well.
Might I say, as an aside, and I'm not an analyst, I'm just a host, I love it. I love that pick. And I'm envisioning, Mel, a New York Giants football team that has Jackson Dart at quarterback and Carnell Tate and Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. I mean, you wanted to talk about something that could become one of the more dynamic looking offenses in the NFL overnight. I really like the sound of it. Is Tate that level? Well, let me reframe the question to you, because to me, it's at this stage of the game, who the heck knows where people are going to be picking? I think it's the players that are more interesting at this stage than the teams. I think people are hearing where you guys are on these players. Is Carnell Tate the first receiver off the board, in your opinion, this year, Mel?
It's a 3. We talk about the quarterbacks. It's 3-horse race right now. And I think Mekhi Lemon is the guy I've loved all along. But I'd say right now it's Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, who's hurt right now, banged up right now. And then Carnell Tate's the red-hot guy. So if you go right now, in the moment, based on what we saw this past week, what we've seen all year from Carnell Tate, and let's face it, Julian Sayin is getting the ball to Tate, and he's got obviously Jeremiah Smith on the other side, who can't come out, unfortunately, because guess what? If Jeremiah Smith was in this draft, it'd be way, way up there, but he's a sophomore and he can't come out.
Yeah.
Now, you know where we are right now with Tate, because of all those factors, having the quarterback emerging, having Jeremiah Smith, fear factor, that's allowed Carnell Tate to go crazy, right? Just go wild and do the thing he does down the field. So to answer your question, Greeny, right now, I would say if you polled people in the league, Carnell Tate would be wide receiver 1.
Okay, fair enough.
I think it's close. Like, I might be pushing a little bit of a premium up there, but I have, for a while, believed he's one of the 10 best players I've watched so far this season. There's room left for guys to best him, but so far this year, that's just some good, clean football tape.
Listen, I don't know everything, but I know this. Drafting a wide receiver from Ohio State lately has been a good idea.
It works out. Yep.
I mean, so I'm all in favor.
We guys gotta get Marvin Harrison Jr. going, who was the highest rated of all those guys.
I know, unbelievable.
We get him going a little bit. We'll go with all those Ohio State receivers who nudge out LSU as wide receiver U.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I mean, it was just Jackson Smith and Jigba and
Garrett Wilson,
Emeka Buka.
It never ends.
Emeka. Navy goes way back. It goes way back in time. You go back because I've been around
Terry
forever.
Glenn, David Boston.
Exactly.
So absolutely.
Ohio State. And then a lot of people want to think LSU, but it's Ohio State as wide receiver U.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
The 6th pick is in. With the 6th pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock, Mel, the Cleveland Browns select.
Do it.
Wow, this is really nuanced. This is tough because Shador is there, It doesn't seem like they love Shador. They're not giving him much of a chance, right? Dylan Gabriel's playing, but we don't think Dylan Gabriel's a franchise quarterback. We have an offensive line issue moving forward. Field can speak to that with free agency affecting this offensive line. Spencer Fano, is he good enough to be this high a pick coming out of Utah? Wide receiver, they drop a lot of balls there, right? Wide receivers do with Cleveland. Harold Fannin Jr., tight end's done a nice job, but wide receivers a need area. We have Jordan Tyson still there from Arizona State and Mekhi Lemon, but we also have Dante Moore.
Yes.
And this is where Dante Moore, for me, I still have him number 1 on the board. Love the kid. I was a big Shador guy, but kind of when you do a mock, you got to kind of remove yourself from this and say, let's kind of make this real. Cleveland Browns in a division with Burrow and Lamar, they got to get it right. You got to get the quarterback. You got to get that guy. If Shador's the guy, it's Steve Walsh and Troy Aikman. At one point, they thought Walsh was the guy over Aikman. So you let it play out. Maybe it's Shador. Maybe it's Dylan Gabriel. Maybe it's Dante Moore. But guess what? You keep trying. You keep trying. And they, as an organization, didn't give Shador much of a chance during preseason to be the guy. Now it's all about developing and getting Dylan Gabriel to progress. Hard to do that when you got O-line and wide receiver issues. But with that all said, it's all about the quarterback in the NFL. It's the most important position in the world in all sports. That's the position, right? I got to go Dante Moore here. And maybe Shador ends up being the guy, just like Troy Aikman and Steve Walsh battle it out. So Dante Moore, quarterback, Oregon, is the pick here for the Cleveland Browns.
I loved and appreciated Mel's conviction on Shador throughout the process last year. But the Browns have told us, without specifically telling us, how they feel about Shador Sanders, right? There's basically zero consideration to him starting right now. And Dylan Gabriel has been mediocre at best. Like, it would be, to me, franchise malpractice to not take a quarterback if they are picking 6th overall next year.
To your point, we'll find out. I mean, Shador and Dylan Gabriel have a head start, but on talent, Dante Moore can spin it with the best.
Yeah, he's a great deep ball accuracy quarterback.
And if he's the guy, hey, and Shador's the pocket guy, he's got a little Brady in him, you think maybe that's the best case scenario. Brady was a 6th-round pick because he had great athletic ability, a great arm and all that.
Yeah,
Shador will have a chance there to be able to compete. And then you see, hey, if Dante Moore's great, that's right. He was a 5th-round pick, Shador was. Dylan Gabriel was a 3rd-round pick. You got to take Dante. Even though I love Shador, you got to take Dante, who I love too, because that quarterback position is so critical in the AFC. And I've always screamed 4th, 3rd in division and getting it done. And you're not getting ahead of Burrow and Lamar unless you get a really big-time quarterback. And you gotta keep trying. And let one of those 3 emerge. If one of those 3 emerge, and you're betting on Dante Moore because I got him as the number 1 player, but we'll see. We think we know, but we don't know. But you got 3 quarterbacks, and you got a shot to get it right finally at Cleveland after all these years. When you had Baker and you let him go, which was ridiculous.
Yep.
Look, I believe that between now and the end of the season, Field, while you are obviously right, I agree with you. I believe the Browns are speaking volumes about how they feel about Shador by not playing him to this point. By the end of the season, I have to believe he will play a little. And we still have so much season left. So we'll start getting some idea. But I think for the purposes of this exercise, this is the right pick to make. Okay, we're working our way through. We have a social post, and I appreciate Joey G, our outstanding producer, wants me to read this verbatim and says he will bleep out the curse words in post. I will say this. There are very few ways that I lose my cushy job at ESPN, but one of them is by reading the words that are on this piece of paper. So I'm going to bleep myself. But anyway, Damian tweets at us, I swear, if the Raiders don't draft Simpson, Moore, or Mendoza this draft, I'm going to lose my bleeping bleep in April. You can fill in the bleeps there. Now, for the purposes of this, Field, you're the one making this pick for the Raiders. All 3 of those guys are gone. The 3 quarterbacks that Damian wants are gone. So unfortunately, Damian, you're going to be losing your bleep and bleep.
Yeah.
If this thing goes, but they could trade. Anyway, the pick is in. Field Yates with the 7th pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock. The Las Vegas Raiders select
Spencer Fano, offensive tackle. I'll call him an offensive lineman for this exercise, from the University of Utah. This offense has been bad this year, and it's been largely because of the quarterback play, but the offensive line hasn't been much better. And Fano has been a right tackle, has played some left tackle at Utah as well. It has outstanding movement skills. He's a premier athlete for the position, very good in the running game. Now, there are some questions just based off of his bulk, Greeny. 305 pounds or 306 pounds is, in any other walk of life, a gigantic human. Amongst NFL offensive tackles, it may not be anything more than just about below average in terms of size. So there are some who think that Fano could end up becoming a better guard than tackle in the NFL, but I would like to exhaust all offensive tackle reps before I move him inside to guard. And I want to say this, and I want to toss this out. I want to see if Mel were in my seat, whether he would have thought about this at all. The player that can't be lost in this shuffle, that we don't even know if he'll be in this draft, but I think just needs to be mentioned is LaNorris Sellers. Sellers, if you just watch him recently, you think to yourself, there's no way he's going in the first 7 picks. LaNorris Sellers' infrastructure right now at South Carolina is woeful. They have already, in recent weeks, fired their offensive line coach and then their offensive coordinator, right? They've been telling us how big of a problem it has been for LaNorris Sellers. And yet, despite how mediocre he has been, this is a traits over production exercise so frequently, right? Shamar Stewart, goes 17th overall after 4.5 career sacks at Texas A&M. I think he needs to go somewhere where he can sit for a year. Geno Smith needs, because of his contract, needs to be the starter for one more season in Las Vegas. That being said, with the oldest coach in NFL history, I don't think they're in the business of developing players for somebody else to one day reap the benefits of. I think this team goes offensive line.
Yeah, I think for LaNorris Sellers, he's 21 on the board. I'd be curious to see where you would have him field on that end, but he could go back as well for another year. Yeah, if they can assure him, hey, the offensive line is going to be better or go somewhere else, he needs another year based on what we've seen this year. Still raw, still developing, but what's undeniable is a talent. So if you do have the ability, like you say, to put him down for a couple of years, say like Jordan Love developed, right? Patrick Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith. If you had that ability, and they would have that ability, that's tempting. And like I say, Fano, the offensive tackle, obviously helps that situation. But in terms of Las Vegas, be aggressive and maybe try to move up. I'll give you another option. I'm going to go to Shedeur. I'm shocked they didn't have an interest in Shedeur last year. I would go get Shedeur Sanders and bring him to the Dome, bring him there. We thought that would be a good spot. I don't know how they feel about him. Tom Brady's influence there with Shedeur, I don't know. I thought it would be more impactful draft day that he would be a Raider. He wasn't, but that would be my option if I were in control there.
Greeny, let me just say something. And Mel, I to both of you, I don't know that our grade of LaNorris Sellers matters that much once we get to the draft. And what I mean by that is our ranking. I think that LaNorris Sellers, like if we have him somewhere like 21, Mel, sounds almost like the median grade that you'll see for LaNorris Sellers, right? I think there are going to be teams that if he came out are going to say way too far from polished to be anywhere close to the first round, right? This guy's got so much work he has to do, and he just, we're not sold. I think you're going to have other teams, a faction of teams that are going to say he's 6'5", he's 250 pounds. The in-pocket escapability is rare. The arm strength is outstanding. With our coaching staff and our developmental skills, this could become a star. The guy that we have seen in doses. Week 1 or week 0 against, against Virginia Tech. Guys running through and around and all over defensive players. There were times late last season. Wow plays here and there. We have to put a grade and a ranking on for ourselves. I do think more than the average prospect, maybe any prospect. How we rank him is sort of irrelevant because I think our grade is much more likely to land splitting the difference than where the league, because at least it'll be on different sides. That's what I think about LaNorris Sellers' grade.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'll also leave it at this, Greeny. I think with LaNorris Sellers, and it's a lot of players in this draft are really tough to evaluate right now because we're still pretty early in the process. But for LaNorris Sellers, the attitude, the character, he has that. And he wants to be great. So again, you get a kid who can be molded and wants to be great and wants to learn. The dilemma's going to be, do you come out or do you go back where you can get more help? Because guess what? If you're going back to that, you don't go back to that. You go into the NFL. So there's people I've spoken to in the league think, go back, and maybe you will. Others say, nah, that situation's not good enough. Come out or don't go somewhere else for 1 year where you have the infrastructure around you to be great. Yeah. You want to take a quarterback at least against the college kids, not the best in the world in the NFL, who you want him to be great against. You want him to be great against college kids. And LaNorris Sellers, because of the infrastructure being not what it needs to be, hasn't been able to do that. So again, you can excuse away a lot of that because of the supporting cast, but you'd like to see your quarterback in the top 10 play a little bit better. But he can't because of the supporting cast. So that's the dilemma. We'll leave it at that for LaNorris Sellers.
Okay. All right, the next pick is in as we move it along here. As we speak, the Arizona Cardinals would be on the clock here at number 8. I repeat again, this will change multiple times. All these orders will change. But as of this recording, the Arizona Cardinals have the 8th pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock, and Mel Kiper, the Cardinals select
Peter Woods, a defensive lineman from Clemson. It's just, you look at a kid, you can move him around, but I really think free technique. I just think he can be so disruptive along the interior. He's so athletic. He's coming on now, and he had a super high grade coming out of high school. He has a super high grade going into this year, and he is certainly more than worthy of being a pick at this stage for Arizona. Obviously, the offensive line, wide receiver, there's other issues there at Arizona, but a guy like Peter Woods, I think, will be a really nice addition to this football team. At a spot in this draft where you go by grade, he's 6 on my board right now and climbing. So 6 and climbing, you get him at 8. I'll take Peter Woods in a heartbeat here.
All right, so you wouldn't consider him from Miami because of Kenneth Grant, but the Cardinals took Walt Nolan last year, right?
Right. They did take Walter Nolan. What's Walter Nolan been this year?
He's hurt is what he's been. Hurt.
So again, and you can pair him there. And I think you look at where we are. You took Spencer Fano, who would have been in consideration here as well.
Yep.
You took him earlier. But I agree. That's the thing. Peter Woods with the young defensive tackle or in Miami. But again, you get to this spot, it's hard field. You were talking about Miami at 4. He's at 6 on my board, right? I always like to, when I'm looking at the board, that's all we can go by. You said, hey, you go by what you have, right? Go by the way you feel. If you got a guy at 6, do you take him at 4? Because I always believe the guy at 4 should be at 4.32. Okay, don't go back. When you're at 8, getting a guy at 6 and climbing.
Okay,
he might be 3 or he might be 3.
Climbing
4,
to 4 soon enough.
Yeah, he might be up there. But at 4, do you take 4? At 8, taking 5 or 4, 6, 5 or 4 really makes you feel good. So I think the board matters. We do all these ratings for a reason. So I've tried at least in this mock draft to stay true, like I did with Dante Moore, number 1 player. You got to take him at Cleveland. Number 6 player Woods, you got to take him at 8. You can't let him get down any further, but at 4 might be a little high. So I've tried to do the tap dance field behind needs that we currently see of these teams, which will change, right? Will the guys even be in this draft? We don't know that. And then the fact of where we have them rated right now. So, and then trying to at least make it work. So again, I felt bad. I took Caleb Downs away from your Bengals, but I'm taking Peter Woods here at Arizona. I'll pair him with the defensive tackle. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Walter Nolan certainly has upside and would have that interior strength that you need in the NFL to really affect that quarterback.
All right.
We have worked our way to the number 9 pick in this draft, and I will interrupt briefly to mention the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock, and since we've been talking, they gave up 2 touchdowns. So the Bengals have allowed 2 touchdowns during the taping of this first draft podcast.
Yeah.
Even though they're not actually playing, they're on a bye week.
Yes.
So let's go. The Bengals, who are mad at each other for any number of obvious reasons, and are playing on the defensive side of the ball about as badly as any team I can remember in a really long time. Field Yates with the 9th pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock. The Cincinnati Bengals select.
I think it's important to kind of know the team that you're representing here, Greeny. And they are going to take Jermod McCoy, cornerback, Tennessee, who, if you don't know that name because you haven't seen him this year, you're not alone. He hasn't played since tearing his ACL back in January. Now, we have seen him a little bit on the practice field for Tennessee. College football is not exactly like the NFL. We're getting extensive practice footage every single day and questionable or whatever tags. But I digress. Jermod McCoy, based off of 2024 tape, was a top 10 player in the draft, in my opinion, for this upcoming draft class. This is a pure man cover corner. He has excellent size. He has great coverage skills. He has outstanding ball skills as well. This guy who just finds the football and makes plays on the ball. He's got great ball skills. When the ball is in his area, he can be a vacuum. DJ Turner is about the only Bengals defensive player that's healthy right now that has been good this season. A former Michigan player who they have gotten great production out of this year. They need more, though. They need more. They need more rushers. They have swung and miss on recent rushers. Trey Hendrickson might be gone. They need linebackers. They need safeties. They need corners. They need everything. I am willing to roll the dice because the Bengals have shown themselves more than willing to roll the dice, right? The past couple of years, Marius Mims, offensive tackle from Georgia, high upside player, inexperienced. Jamar Stewart last year, high upside player, not productive. Even if Jermod McCoy doesn't play at all this season, he'd be a guy that I think the Bengals would consider.
Let me ask this, Field. If Caleb Downs is there, what would you do?
Take Caleb Downs.
Okay.
Yeah, that to me, I mean, you have to find a way to put an umbrella on these big plays. It's just embarrassing, Mel. 58-yard touchdown pass to Colston Loveland with 17 seconds to go, like with 2 defenders there to close down on him. I mean, I unfathomable defensive effort from the Bengals in week 9. I feel I'm sick to my stomach for those fans who I swore there was no way it could get worse defensively than it was last year. And it's somehow miraculously gotten worse.
Oh, it's gotten so much worse.
Yes.
Okay. To the 10th and final pick in the 2026 first draft midseason mini mock, the Washington Commanders are on the clock. Oh, the pick is in. Mel Kiper with the 10th pick. The Commanders select.
It's a rare that I would ever do this because I have a philosophy against this. But hey, you draft on what I always say, Fielding and Greeny, you draft on your rating,
value,
and you draft on value. Don't draft on philosophy. And my philosophy, if I got a guy banging the table, my head coach is banging that table, saying, "Hey, your number 2 player on the board is running back Jeremiyah Love." And Jake Daniels, unfortunately injured, but you think about the running back position, you think about the versatility of Jeremiyah Love as a receiver and as a game-breaking running back, the comp to Reggie Bush and all that. I think this is a great spot to get the second best player on the board. And running backs do drop because most teams have them. Some teams have 2, right? And then running backs do drop because a lot of people bought into that crazy philosophy of mine. But at pick number 10, Washington takes Jeremiyah Love, running back from Notre Dame.
This feels like a big day. I feel this is a momentous occasion.
It is.
Mel is mocking a running back in the top 10 field. I feel this should be commemorated somehow.
It really should. We got to forever more stamp November 5th as the day in which, it's like the world changed that day. We just didn't realize how it was going to change when we woke up that morning. Love the player. I'd be attacking either wide receiver or Jordan Tyson. They need depth. Not just beyond Terry McLaurin, but maybe like to take over for Terry McLaurin at some point in the next few years. McLaurin, of course, now in his age 30 season, has been very banged up this year. Or I would have looked along the offensive line or the defensive backfield. If this team commits to playing more zone coverage in future years, which has not been something they've done much this year, Mansour Delane, LSU corner who was previously at Virginia Tech, all names that I would have considered there.
That is an exceptional first mini mock of the year.
I love this stuff. I love it.
To recap, we've got Fernando Mendoza going number 1 to New Orleans. We have Arvell Reese going 2 to the Titans. We have the Jets taking Ty Simpson 3. The Dolphins take Caleb Downs 4. The Giants select Carnell Tate 5, which, if I'm doing my math right, means we have 3 Ohio State players in the first 5 picks.
Unbelievable.
The Browns select Dante Moore 6, which means we have 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 picks. The Raiders take Spencer Fano, the tackle out of Utah. The Cardinals take Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. Jermod McCoy, the banged-up corner, goes number 9 to the Bengals. And the Commanders take their running back Jeremiyah Love out of Notre Dame. Quick final words as we are running out of time here. Mel, final words. What would be a quick final word from you as we sort of look back on the 10 picks?
I think a couple names that we don't have in there. Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State. Makai Lemon, wide receiver from USC, are a couple names not in there. And then Reuben Bain Jr., the defensive end from Miami. Going through the draft process, even though he's had obviously moments of domination at Miami, even though the stat chart doesn't always indicate that. It's going to be interesting that people say edge and what they're going to do there. And Field hit on it. Jermod McCoy, ACL in January, that cornerback from Tennessee, not back yet at Tennessee. What happens with him as we move through the draft process? Where is he on my board right now? He's at 17. Field took him at 9. He certainly has top 10 ability. It's going to be really fascinating to see how this end of season shakes out. And then, guys, what's even going to be more fascinating is which of these quarterbacks decide to go back or go into the NFL draft. That will impact this top 10 in this entire first round immensely.
I have a very, very tight tier at the very top of my board right now of players that I say to myself look like top 15 picks, not just top 10, top 15 picks. None of those players were excluded from this list. So there's nobody that I'm saying to myself, oh my God, how did he not crack the top 10? That to me is a little bit of a testament to the strength of this draft, also to the uncertainty surrounding the quarterback. So we'll see here, but I absolutely love mocks. I could do one probably every single week on this show.
Well, I could be talked into that too. So it's a conversation we'll have at a different time. In the meantime, that is all the time we have for this edition of First Draft. A reminder, there's a QR code on the screen. Scan that. You can access all of the episodes we've done all season long. Remember, with you every single Wednesday on the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel, on ESPN2, wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe. to the podcast. And do not forget to send in your questions using the hashtag #FirstDraft for a chance to get your answers right here live on the program. So, for Mel Kiper Jr. and Field Yates, I am Greeny. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.